Hey guys, it's Eating Disorder Awareness Week, and this is my first video in my Q&A video series, and I'm answering the question, is recovery possible? So in this video, I'm going to be talking a bit about what recovery even means, what it means to me, whether or not I think it's possible, and I'll be sharing a bit of my own experience with recovery and also sharing a bit about what my life is like now today post-recovery. So keep on watching. So the first thing we have to consider when we're talking about whether or not recovery is possible is what our definition of recovery is. Asking if recovery is possible is very similar to asking if true love is possible. It's very personal. It's very relative to what someone's idea or definition of what that thing is. And there isn't really a universal answer because everybody is going to have their own experience and their own perspective on it. I really appreciate what Jenny Schaefer says in her books about finding your own definition for recovery that works and fits for you, because at the end of the day, we're all very different. Our experiences are different. And I think that the first step to determining what your thoughts are on recovery is figuring out what recovery even means for you. And this is something that I recommend working through with your therapist, journaling, figuring it out for yourself, a personal idea of what does recovery mean. So in this video, I'm going to share a bit about what it means for me. As a caveat, I am not a medical professional. I am someone who has lived with and lived through an eating disorder. And so I just wanted to share my experiences and my response to this question that was submitted by one of LIBERO's readers. So for me, recovery is not about simply becoming fully weight restored. I also don't view recovery as never having an eating disorder thought. I know that there are people out there who say, I'm fully recovered, I never have a single thought. That hasn't been my experience, and I'm not sure if I would say that that's necessarily the most realistic goal to set. I also don't think being fully recovered is about becoming a person that basically never struggled with an eating disorder or disordered eating. That's not realistic. So putting expectations on yourself, or for me, putting expectations on myself to hit a place mentally where it was as if I had never struggled at all is not really realistic, because that sort of thoughts were something that I worked through, and it wouldn't be realistic for me to expect myself to get to a place where it's as if that never happened. I also don't believe that recovery means loving your body all the time. Because again, for me, that just doesn't resonate as being a very realistic goal. What does resonate with me personally for what being recovered looks like, or what it means, is not being controlled by your eating disorder. It's not having eating disorder thoughts and behaviors so consistently that they're having a significant impact on your life. It's developing a healthy, balanced approach to nutrition and exercise. It's living for a prolonged period of time free from any relapses. Going back to what I was saying about having eating disorder related thoughts, to me, being recovered isn't that those thoughts don't exist. They are there. There are thoughts that will pop into my head that someone who has not gone through an eating disorder would probably never think. But I appreciate what one of my friends' perspective on this was. She said they're kind of like little bubbles, and they kind of float by and then they keep floating away. And that's kind of the way that I see it. So do I ever have disordered thoughts related to my body or related to food or behaviors? Absolutely, they come up sometimes. But do I act on them? No. Do they have a significant emotional impact on me? No. And that's kind of the difference for me between living in recovery and living recovered. I also view living recovered as having good and bad body days, just like everybody else. So I have days when I don't really give my body much thought. I have days when I really don't like my body, and I have days when I really like my body, and it's just a constant journey that's ever changing. The difference really for me is how I respond to those days, how I act. And like I said before, I no longer act in a way that's disordered. I no longer engage in disordered behaviors or eating disorder behaviors as a result of how I might be feeling about my body on any given day. Most importantly, I view living recovered as what I am choosing every single day. So I am choosing health now. I am choosing self-love. I am choosing not to engage in self-harming behaviors and eating disorder behaviors. And I'm choosing to work at staying healthy mentally. And those are all choices. And it's not a choice like a battle. It's not like every day I have to, I'm going to battle to choose to do to be healthy. Some days are a bit like that, but those days are, again, few and far between. But the choice is almost a subconscious one at this point, but it is a choice that I'm constantly making. So what does it take to get from living in recovery to living recovered? It takes hard work. People that say that, they're telling you the truth. But what I do want to say is, at least from my perspective, I wouldn't say that recovery is going through recovery is the hardest thing. For me, it was much, much harder living with my eating disorder. So even though recovery does take hard work, I personally found it was much harder to live with an eating disorder than it was to start pulling myself out of it. It also takes positivity and the belief that you can recover and that you are worth recovery. It takes time and it takes patience. My next video is actually going to be answering the question, how long does recovery take? So that'll be up tomorrow on Wednesday, so stay tuned for that. It takes professional help, absolutely. That can look like a therapist, a clinical counselor, psychologist, dietitians, maybe medical doctors, but it definitely takes professional help and being open to that. It takes support from others around you, but also support from within yourself. You have to be on your own team. It takes honesty. This is a really big one. You have to be honest with yourself, and you have to be honest with others and honest with your recovery team. And it takes a willingness to do the work and go deeper, because at the end of the day, eating disorders really are a symptom. There is a root cause behind them. And so you need to have a willingness and an openness to do the hard work and to dig deep and figure out where your eating disorder may be coming from and what some of the origins are. So now that I've gone through all the work it takes, the question is it worth it? And absolutely yes. Recovery is hands down totally worth it, because at the end of the day, you deserve to live free from your eating disorder. And as I've mentioned, you can live free from your eating disorder. So recovery is what gets you there. I want to share a little bit of my experience. So for me, I got to a point in recovery where I thought that I would never be happy. Even actually before recovery, I mean, happiness just didn't even seem like an option for me. But even through recovery, I did hit a point where I thought I would never be happy. And then I started looking to other people who had walked ahead of me through the journey, whether that was through reading books and blogs or watching videos or talking to friends. People who had lived through eating disorders and come out the other side. I started looking to them and listening to them, and it was through their stories that I found that hope that, recovery is possible, and happiness and joy are possible. And through the inner work that I was doing, I learned that, and I'm worth that. I deserve that, and I can have that. And that was really a big turning point for me. I'm going to touch really briefly on some of the science behind this. I did try to find statistics about percentages about people recovered and see if there was any kind of scientific backing. There weren't any specific statistics about, what percentage of people call themselves recovered that I could find. If you know any, please comment below and show me. I'd love to see that. There's mostly data on just kind of the occurrence of eating disorders and the mortality rate of eating disorders, so I won't be going into all of that. However, what I did find there are evidence-based treatments for eating disorders, and evidence-based treatments, according to NEDA, the National Eating Disorder Association, are treatments that are proven scientifically to lessen symptoms, I think these are all so to lessen symptoms, to aid in weight restoration, and to decrease eating disorder thoughts. So from my perspective, if there are science-based treatments that make eating disorder behaviors and symptoms better or go away, then that points to the fact that it is possible to recover. There would not be science-based treatments if it wasn't possible at all to recover. I'm not going to get into all the various types of science-based treatments, but I'm going to link down below to that page from Nita. They list a whole bunch of different types of treatments, and I'll probably do a video of that in the future. Let me know in the comments if that's something that would interest you. I want to close with one final thing that I want to share, and it's that I have never regretted recovery. I'm the kind of person I tend to live with a lot of regret over big things and small things. I mean, it's just part of my mental makeup. But one thing that I never regret and one thing that I never kind of doubt is my choice to embark on the journey of recovery. It took time. It took patience and perseverance and support and help and honesty and hard work. But it totally reshaped my life. It totally reshaped my relationship with myself, my body, my relationship with others. And there's not a single day where I look back and regret that choice to choose recovery. And now, sitting here, I am living what I would define as a recovered life. I am free from eating disorder thoughts and behaviors having an impact on my life. I am free from the burden of not loving myself, not loving my body, and I am through the portion on my journey that was about living in recovery where treatment was the top priority. I'm now through that, all that necessary work. I'm through that, and I'm on the other side where now I maintain my own mental health, but my whole life doesn't revolve around recovery anymore. So for me, that means that I am living what I would consider to be a recovered life. I am living free from my eating disorder, and honestly, I say this with all my heart, you guys can do it too. If I can do it, you can do it too. If I'm worthy of it, you're worthy of it too. So don't doubt yourself. You're here for a reason, and you can recover. So in closing, I hope you found this video helpful. Most importantly, I hope you found it encouraging if you are living with an eating disorder right now. And I will see you guys in my next video. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed watching this video. I encourage you to join us over at LIBERO as we champion mental health and advocate recovery. We have loads of articles, we have lots of videos and other resources, and we have a huge online community, and we would love to have you there. All the links are in the description box below, and you can visit our site at liberomagazine.com.